The 7th of September, 1997. I don't have much longer to live, and nothing left to yearn for. Doc said I'd be lucky to survive another 2 months or so. Lung cancer. Never smoked a damn cigarette in my life, but here we are. The irony. By the time that you will read this, my ass will be 5 feet underground. Alexander, if you're reading this, I want you to promise me, keep fighting. Only people like us stand between millions of innocents and the spawn of hell itself. I've spent 57 years being that wall, and made you do the same. Even if you resent me for it, please, continue to be that wall. I am well aware of the dangers you will face in the path that I've set you on, and I'd be long dead to help you through it. However, even as my body decays, and my soul continues to fade away into oblivion, I wish to pass down a relic, one that has been with our bloodline for generations. You remember that old dusty wine cabinet, the one in our basement? It brings back memories, doesn't it? Like the time you tried to sneak that bottle of Merlot to your friend's party. I'm getting off track. Anyways, teenage drinking wasn't the only reason to keep you away from it. After my death, return to the basement. If you push the cabinet aside, there's a fox wall with a keyhole. Use the back end of the basement key and you're all set. This is the greatest asset that I can give you. Use it in your trials to come and wreak havoc. That'll be enough of a requiem for me. I might not have been the best dad, but I want you to know that I'm proud to call you my son. If you ever feel lost or faltered, look deep within yourself and I'll be there to guide you through the darkness. Love, Dad. I crumbled the piece of paper as I finished reading. It was the final letter my grandfather wrote for my dad on his deathbed. And now, as I read this, my father's lifeless body lay right beside me. He presented the note to me before passing away, instructing me to open it only after he had drew his last breath. My father, Alexander Myers, I've always looked up to him as some sort of legend. He owned a butcher shop in Texas. Needless to say, he taught me how to gut and skin livestock from a very young age. 6 to be precise. Aside from that, I was given basic training in martial arts and shooting. Looking back, I guess this was just an extensive training regime to prep me up for the real stuff. At the age of 9, my father began to take me out for hunting. At first, it was just tracking down your average buck. The difficulty kept increasing as I eventually started shooting bears. Before I knew it, I was 11 years old, tracking down a stowaway werewolf. Yes, a werewolf. You see, my family has an untold story. Most people think I'm just your average butcher, and for the most part, I am. But when shit hits the fan, I'm the guy you call in to exterminate things that go bump in the night. After my father died, I headed back to my home. I sat there for a moment, embracing the fact that the closest person had disappeared from my life. The days, the group hunts, and the memories, all of them swept over me as I felt tears running down my cheeks. Suddenly, I heard a knock from behind. "Myers," a voice called. "Sarge," I muttered, looking behind me. There he stood, 6'3" and 250 pounds of pure muscle. Sergeant William Sanders, my dad's squad mate. He was the one who gave me the opportunity to run my first S-rank mission with the squad. "I'm so sorry for your loss," he continued. "I ran a lot of missions with him. We were really tight." I stood up and I approached him. "Well, surely you aren't here just to extend your condolences." "Don't be so distant, Junior," he scoffed. "But yeah, it's not just apologies I have to offer. I looked up at him. Well, what are we dealing with, and where? I asked. Skinwalkers, in South Africa, he responded. I almost burst out laughing. Skinwalkers, I retorted. In Africa. I thought they were native to the States. Sarge kept his poker face. Our surveillance team received a distress call from the Bushveld region. They reported a pack of 7 skinnies running around, taking unexpected locals. I tensed up. The seriousness on Sarge's face sent a chill down my spine. Sarge continued. A team of 10 B-class hunters were sent in. They downed 2 skinwalkers, but only 2 hunters returned from the reserve. One without his right arm, and the other with claw marks on his back. They'd been evacuated, but both of them are mentally screwed, past the point of giving even a short account of what had happened back there. They keep on rambling about a giant monster in the woods. I didn't know how to respond. Skinwalkers were native to North America, mostly the US. But then again, that damned blood magic ritual can be performed by any lunatic insane enough. The making of a skinwalker, it's, well, gruesome. The person intended has to pick an animal, rip its heart out and eat it fresh out of its body. After that, you have to draw a transformation pentagram or some shitty thing with the animal's blood, skin the animal, wear its hide, and mutter some weird incantations for the transformation to start. I don't really know it that well. I'm not well versed in magic and the spiritual arts. Once the transformation is complete, the result is a skinwalker. A human hybrid which inherits the morphological characteristics of the animal, complete with the exterior, albeit maintaining a somewhat anthropod form. They maintain some level of human intelligence and can easily tear a human to shreds. They're ranked as an A-tier threat. I try to make sense of the situation. The giant monster those 2 mentioned. Maybe a Wendigo, I suggested. We don't have much to work with. We've received orders to consider it an S-tier threat and smoke whatever monsters lie in those woods. We drop into Bushveld, clear the areas around Eastern Cape, and lay waste to the monstrosities lurking in the shadows. What do you say, Junior? It's another S-class mission. You up for it? I glanced towards my dresser and glanced at the picture of my father, which I had just put up. Yeah, count me in, I said. Great, Sarge boomed. Report to base. We leave in 2 days. I hesitated for a moment before asking. Hey Sarge, before that, I want to visit England. You think I could get 24 hours? Sarge looked at me. Is it urgent? Yes, I replied. Alright, but if you plan on chickening out, I'll find you and I'll drag your ass straight into battle, he said. Fast forward 7 hours and an airlift. I was in England, more precisely at my family's manor. For privacy reasons, I won't be disclosing its location. The estate was huge. I would make good money if I sell it. As of now, though, it was a place to crash in for great hunters who had connections with my grandfather, or a meeting place to coordinate hunts within England. My grandfather played a huge role to establish the foundation of modern hunting. He was one of the founders of the Hunter Corps, which established a worldwide connections among monster hunters. Anyways, I entered the enormous structure. I had been here once or twice, but never stayed for more than a week. My father used to live here with my grandpa before he had moved to the States. I descended down the basement stairs. It was pretty dusty. I turned on the lights and I glanced to my left. There it was, a maplewood cabinet. I opened it. There was nothing inside. Somebody must have been on a drinking spree or something. Last time I checked, there were around 18 bottles worth of liquor in there. Heck, I once snuck one out myself in my teens and downed it beyond the bushes. and then ran along the property fence. I grabbed the cabinet and I slammed it on the floor. Just like in the note, there was that cliché secret door behind it. I took my basement key and I turned it around. It went in the keyhole smoothly. I pushed it to the right and the wall opened up. I pushed it in. Inside was a small room. It was fairly dark. I felt for the light switch and I turned it on. As I looked inside, my jaw dropped. It was beautiful and mesmerizing. A feeling of excitement rushed through my veins as I stared at the walls decked with my grandfather's personal arsenal. There were some really big guns, bigger than anything I'd ever used. On a small rack to the right lied an array of poisons. I caught a glimpse of concentrated wolfsbane extract. A dart dipped with that could easily take out a dragon. A crossbow sat on a shelf to the left. It had a draw weight of 400 pounds. That's some serious power. Aside from that, I found a lot of equipment. I found a 50 cal sniper rifle and a box of silver bullets. It's a great poison against vampires and werewolves. But the one thing that caught my eye the most was a shotgun. It was very peculiar. It was a pump action with a 28-inch barrel. It seemed a bit big and bulky, with weird patterns on the barrel and stock made from steel strips. Boy, was it heavy. It was a chore just to get it mounted on my shoulders. Beside the giant gun lay a box of slug shots. There is a big red label on it which read, High X. At this point, I was overwhelmed. There were a lot of neat options for the up-and-coming hunt. I could seriously use the concentrated wolfsbane, but using one on a skinny seemed like a waste. Usually a well-placed bullet to the head would do for those creeps. But then again, we had a possible S tier in our hands. I ended up packing 5 arrows, the crossbow, the wolfsbane, and the shotgun. I also grabbed the shells, just in case. I was airlifted to South Africa, more precisely, Base H-15. I was supposed to rendezvous with the squad there. I walked into the debriefing room. The entire force had already assembled, 4 hunters in total. Hideyoshi, a veteran hunter from Japan. Singh, a hulk of a man who had been hunting for 29 years. Wilson, an expert tracker and a good friend of my dad's. And last but not least, Sarge. After a debriefing session, we suited up. We were moving out in 3 hours. I took out my bag filled with my souvenirs from England. Sarge sat down beside me. Went to retrieve the shotgun, huh? Your father used that once or twice as well. Well, that's one hell of a shotgun, all right, Wilson said, walking towards us. He picked it up. Did you bring the rounds? He asked. What rounds? I asked, perplexed. The high-X tungsten slug shots. Don't tell me you went all the way to England just to forget them, Wilson remarked. I remembered the box of shells. You talking about these? I asked, pulling the box out. Yeah, that's the stuff, he said, taking the box from me. He loaded 2 bullets and he handed it to me. Use them only as a last resort, he said before walking off. What was that about? I asked Sarge. Oh well, the bullets are high X to begin with. With any normal shotgun, you can take off a chimera's head while also blowing your gun to smithereens. And if that wasn't enough, the shotgun that you're holding amplifies blast to increase the power of loaded bullets. Just imagine what kind of monstrosity would be born with both combined together. I shuddered at the thought. I was contemplating even bringing it with me. But despite it all, I decided to bring it on. A few hours later, I'm on a chopper with 4 hunters, heading towards either my victory or my demise. The chopper dropped us off at the edge of the woods near Eastern Cape. We turned on our night vision goggles and we headed into the trees. The area was utterly quiet. They say even dead silence has a sound to it, and that's exactly what I was hearing. The unsettling darkness, like an enormous wave waiting to engulf an unfortunate fairy, surrounded us. I felt like any moment, something would come running out of the darkness and tear me apart. The sense of fear, I feel it on every hunt. The sweat trickling down my face, my heart slamming against the walls of my chest. I feel it every time. This very omnipresent fear is what I've come to accept and embrace every time I go for a hunt. This time was no different. Sarge led the way with all of us trailing in a single line. About 15 minutes in, we reached a clearing. Sarge ceased his advances and motioned for us to stop at the edge of the tree line. We all assembled in a file around the tree line. Singh pulled out his binoculars. "I see movement on our 10, he said. It was hard to discern with the darkness. I pulled out my crossbow and I took a look through the scope. The night vision scope clearly displayed something moving on the other side of the clearing, around 130 meters away. I loaded my Glock. It was all that I could bring with both the shotgun and the crossbow slung over my back. Hideyoshi pulled out his 50 cal. We were instructed to carry heavy, but I didn't expect him to pull out the big guns immediately. From my past experiences with skinwalkers, they usually scram if they see a large group of hunters. The occasional rustling ensued, but it didn't get closer. We waited for 10 minutes. Suddenly Wilson spoke up. "Watch your 3, there's movement. They're probably circling around." I pointed my crossbow in that direction. There was a slight movement in the bushes. It stopped as suddenly as it had started. The movement in front of us had stopped completely, and then something came into the clearing. It looked like a deer or a gazelle of some sort. I kept my aim trained on it. It could very well be a skinwalker. And then from the opposite side of the clearing, an African wild dog came. It seemed a bit too big for dog standards. It slowly approached the deer. The deer looked up at the massive dog. They started approaching each other. The moment was tense. We still hadn't confirmed if they were skinwalkers or just normal animals. And then all of a sudden, the deer stood up on its hind legs. Every inch of its body tensed up as I realized at least the deer was a skinwalker. The dog then sat down, legs crossed, and grabbed a nearby rock with its hand. The second confirmation. Both suspects before us were skinwalkers. They just stayed there, hardly moving a muscle. Sarge raised his fist and shook his head. He whispered, "I want at least 4 confirmed skinnies. This just might be our only chance for tonight." Obviously, if a fight ensued now, the remaining 3 wouldn't dare come out. That's the scariest part of these creatures, their intelligence. We stayed still for 3 minutes. Another rustle came from the opposite side of the clearing. Another giant dog came trudging out of the bushes on its hind legs. Sarge whispered to Hideyoshi, "The second you confirm the appearance of a 4th, give the signal." We all waited in anticipation. All the while, not a single sound persisted within the forest. I could only feel myself and the 3 beasts in front of me. The rest of the world seemed like a standstill. In just a single movement, my entire environment went from nerve-wracking silence to an adrenaline-fueled rush as I noticed Hideyoshi give the signal. My body switched from high alert to an all-out assault stance. Hideyoshi took aim and fired. The ringing echoed through the forest. Within the blink of an eye, the human-deer hybrid fell to the ground as it took a bullet to the head. I had my crossbow ready to go, and so I aimed for the dog-skinned beast beside the deer. A perfect shot. The arrow went straight through its left eye socket. To give you an idea of how fast and intense this scenario was, both skinwalkers fell to the ground mere milliseconds apart. The 4th is on my 11, around 200 meters into the trees. Hideyoshi said as he took aim at the third one at the tree line. "Everybody rush in," Wilson yelled. "Myers and Singh, we'll flank them. Me and Sarge will charge it on." I nodded as, Singh he took the left side. I circled right. I was at the other side in no time, running towards the right side of the woods. Every now and then I would scan the area with my crossbow to ascertain the fourth position. A good 5 minutes passed. Still no movement on my side. Suddenly, I heard static from my earpiece. Wilson's voice came through. "Myers, something came barreling down through the foliage in front of us. It grabbed the damn skinny we were chasing. Anyways, I'm heading straight towards your direction fast. We're heading to your location ASAP. Hold out for a few minutes." It took me a second to comprehend what I had just heard. Something big. Was this the alleged beast that wiped out an entire squad? Did I stand a chance against it? A few of my doubts were cleared with the sight of a mangled skinwalker carcass right in front of me. The thing was brutally mutilated. Its intestines spread out across the forest floor. The blood was fairly dried out, suggesting that it was dead for a while. The three back at the clearing, the one snatched in front of Sarge and Wilson, and the mess of a skinwalker in front of me. That was 5 in total. That's meant we only had one monster left to deal with. But from what I had witnessed, this boss battle wasn't gonna be easy. I was lost in my thoughts when I heard something running towards me from behind. I snapped out of my trance and I turned around with my crossbow prepped. I looked through the scope. It was Hideyoshi. "Whoa, it's me," he shouted. After I recovered from my initial shock, I immediately shushed him. "Something's coming here," I quietly whispered to him. "Something big." Hideyoshi simply nodded while loading a mag into his rifle. I had a feeling that my crossbow wouldn't cut it, and so I grabbed my Glock, still hesitant about using the shotgun. We started scouting our surroundings for any threats. It was still pretty dark out. I slowly moved around, inspecting the foliage for any movement. Suddenly, something grabbed me and pulled me into a group of bushes. My mouth was covered. I turned around to find Hideyoshi desperately trying to get me to keep quiet. I calmed down after seeing him. I looked at him. He stared right at my 7 and pointed. I slowly turned around. It was pretty dark, but I could make out something moving through the darkness. A colossal mass silently drifted through the trees. As it came into proximity, I saw the beast with my own eyes. No words exist to describe my fear at that moment. I lost all control over my body. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The mere presence of this abomination sent a chill down my spine. I'd only read about this monster, but never saw it in my life up until now. Imagine a giant serpentine body with clawed forelimbs, and an elephant's head resting on its neck. It stood 13 feet tall and with a tail, measured around 30 feet in length. A Groot slang, an ancient African monster, whose origin is said to date back to the birth of time itself. They were hunted to extinction in the late 70s. This guy was probably a survivor from the massacre. It drew closer, sniffing the ground as its thunderous footsteps resonated around the forest. It occasionally bared its sharp fangs, all the while growling and sniffing. And then the Groot slang stopped sniffing. It turned its devilish head in our direction. I was sure that it caught our scent. I tensed up, preparing for the worst case scenario. Hideyoshi readied his rifle and aimed at the beast, brushing past a branch doing so. It was at that moment that the beast noticed us. I stared into its eyes and saw pure carnage. The beast came charging at full speed, using its forelimbs to crawl through the shrubs and trees. I heard a loud bang as Hideyoshi fired at the beast. That didn't stop it, however. I jumped up out of the way. The beast lurched forth, missing me by a few feet or so. It turned back to face me. However, as it turned around to face me, A barrage of bullets struck the beast on its right side. I turned to see Sergeant Wilson running towards us. Both of them had their semi-automatics loaded. "These rounds won't cut it. This bastard's hide is tough as hell," Sarge yelled. "Well, what are we gonna do? Drop a road roller on it?" came Wilson's sarcastic reply. Sarge harbored an expression of worry on his face. The beast had turned to face the two hunters. It charged to full speed as both men fired shots of vein at its body. Hideyoshi prepared a high-X round and pulled the trigger. As the round hit the beast's shoulder, it exploded into a blazing inferno. The Groot slang fell to its knees, letting out a roar of pain. The victory was short-lived though. It slowly rose to its full height, slamming the ground with its massive 8-inch claws. It let out a deafening screech, one that still keeps me up at night. It was demonic, straight out of hell. "Damn it, I underestimated the scenario. We need bigger guns," Wilson yelled. "That was the biggest round that I have right now," Hideyoshi replied. Even Sarge didn't have any more firepower than Wilson did. "I should have brought the nade launcher instead of the AR, Sarge muttered. "This thing's got frags in a C4, but he'll take a while to get here," Wilson cried out. I started crawling back to my backpack that I had dropped during the jump. The Groot slang noticed my movement. It gave me one look of malice and it charged once again. My movements became more frantic as the creature drew near. My hands desperately scoured for any kind of weapon in my vicinity. As these seconds passed and not a single weapon could be found, I started to lose my sanity. Despite my teammates constantly firing at the wrecking ball coming straight at me, I lost all hope. I was certain that I was going to die. And then suddenly, my hands rested on something metallic. It was like a blessing descending from the heavens. I grabbed the object. It was my shotgun. I had lost all control as my body moved subconsciously. I aimed the shotgun and I cocked it. In the heat of the moment, something awakened within the shotgun. It felt as if the shotgun came back to life. It felt as if it was an extension of my body. I felt the shotgun resonating in my arms as power surged through me. It was surreal. I focused everything on the charging giant in front of me, and I pulled the trigger. The shockwave that followed was tremendous. A fiery explosion erupted from the shotgun straight at the beast as it went flying backwards. Tremendous pain jolted through my right shoulder. The brightness of the muzzle flash blinded me as I landed hard on my back. Before I blacked out, I saw the beast head dislodging from its body and shattering into bits of flesh and bone. The aftermath is unknown to me. I woke up in a hospital. Sergeant Wilson sat beside me. Sarge noticed that I woke up. "Morning, soldier," he said. "A broken rib and a dislocated shoulder. Not bad, huh?" I recalled the incidents from the hunt. "The Groot slang. Did we get him?" I asked. "That shotgun never fails, son. Blasted that son of a gun's head straight off," Sarge replied. "That shotgun is a definite one-shot kill." I glanced at my now bandaged shoulder. "Well, at what cost?" I scoffed. Wilson spoke up. "Well, that was your first shot. You'll need some practice with it. It's really hard to control. Maybe one day you'll be able to match your grandpa's." "Grandpa?" I muttered in confusion. Wilson's expression turned serious. "Make no mistake, Myers. Your entire bloodline is filled with absolute monsters. Your grandfather, he used to dual wield that shotgun with his Colt 1911.